Hello and welcome to another Plan With Me video. I'm Tash and today we're working on planning for January 2025. As usual, we're starting out by looking at all the items I may or may not use for this month's theme, which is astrology. The whole theme was inspired by this set of galaxy washi tape papers you can see here. I didn't have as much stuff themed around the vibe I was aiming for, so I kind of just went with what I had and hoped for the best. I'd been wanting to do a theme like this for ages actually, and even though I'm not typically a tarot, astrology, zodiac kind of person, I do really enjoy the aesthetic that comes along with it, so here we are. Also, just quickly, I want to apologise for this video being later than usual. I've been in a pretty bad autoimmune flare-up and I've really not been able to get out of bed and work until the last couple of days. I'm sorry, hopefully February will be on time. This was my first monthly setup in this journal, and I won't lie, I really struggled with this one. Because I'm working in a B5 journal from Notebook Therapy for the first time, there is a lot more space than what I'm used to. This wasn't an issue when setting up the journal because I was working with a theme that I was much more comfortable with, but honestly, because I was trying a new aesthetic that I'm not fully familiar with and had less stuff than I normally would pull out for a theme like this even in an A5 size journal, it made the whole setup really challenging for me, and I'm not totally satisfied with the results. I actually realized just how much I was struggling with this theme when planning it out with pencils, so really I probably should have taken note of that and switched to something else until I had more stickers and papers and a better idea of where to go with it, but I didn't, and I think that shows itself in the results. Don't get me wrong, there are aspects of this theme that I actually really love, but overall I think it could have been so much better. Anyway, on to the actual video without me continuing to ramble on. I'll link the font that I used in the description box in case you want to use it yourself, but I thought that this would be a really fun one to use for this theme. I don't think I executed it particularly well though. I actually wanted to use a navy blue for all the fonts in this setup, but I didn't have ink or paint or anything that was quite the right colour, so I ended up mixing together a black shimmery acrylic paint I had with Pthalo blue, which gave me a colour I was actually really happy with. The issue was though, I hated how the letters looked when they were painted, so I actually only used that colour for the font on the cover page, and I switched to black Micron pen for the rest of the fonts in the setup. So one of the main elements that I've used to sort of tie every page or spread together is a gold border. I used my gold Kuretake Gansai watercolours for this. I'm still not sure if it was too much, but I was kind of going for like the decorative gold gilding you can find on the back of some of those really pretty tarot cards. The first few pages I used a flat brush for painting the borders, but later on I switched to a liner brush because it gave me more stability and better lines. I had so much trouble overall making all the borders neat and straight, and I kept trying to fix and straighten and neaten only for the lines to end up wonky and then too thick, which was pretty annoying. Because I have so much space in this journal, I thought it might be fun to be able to see a decorative paper from the calendar spread while you're on the cover page. I made a rounded cutout and then I painted a crescent moon on both sides to tie in with the cosmic astrology kind of feel. I did this using a white gold watercolour, which is also from the Kuretake Gansai set, and I aligned it with a small Pigma Micron just for a touch of definition. I had so many washi papers and washi tapes that I could have used here to put on the calendar spread to be seen from the cover spread, and literally nothing felt like it was going to work. I sped this up heaps and also cut out a lot of footage of me trying to decide what to use. I ended up remembering that I had a bunch of different galaxy washi sheets and they ended up being perfect, and it was kind of the point where it felt like the theme started to come together for me. I also had a bunch of these different like crystal sort of stickers, but not all of them in this set matched the theme that I was going for, so I had to spend a lot of time working out which stickers from different sets would go with different papers, and that way I could make a decision on exactly what I wanted to use. I have these window stickers in literally every colour they come in. I thought the yellow or blue colourways would be sort of, I don't know, Astrologer feel? Like, I imagined an old astrologer in a tower studying the stars from his telescope, which is why I added in the vintage sort of script papers, which you'll see soon. I ended up going with the blue windows in this theme, but even with the vision that I had in mind, it took forever to figure out how to make this cover page work, to sort of balance both sides and make it look like something and not just stuff sitting on the page. I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. I've had this, I don't really know what to call it, colour splotch PET tape for ages now, but I've never had like the right theme to use them. I'm not using all the colours, by the way, because I don't think they all work for this theme, but the dark blues, purples and blacks ended up working so well, and I'm really, really happy that I was able to incorporate them. I have this little set of stickers with moons, tarot cards, and mystical kind of things that really just complemented this whole setup perfectly. The downside is that you have to cut each one out individually, and it's so tedious. Worth it though, to be honest. I'm basically using different tapes, crystal stickers, and colour stickers from all different places and all different sets to create little vignettes over the page. The colour splotches are great for anchoring different elements and make them feel like they're not just floating on the page. I'm still not quite happy with the cover page when I finish this, but I do come back later and add some more finishing touches that makes it all come together nicely. Moving on from the cover pages now and onto the calendar spread, there's really not much different to say here. I've stayed with the same kind of calendar that I always do, but just changing the decoration obviously to match in with the theme. Once again, even though I spent hours planning out this theme, there are still things that I've overlooked that I didn't notice until I actually started recording the footage. So the gold border is actually painted up against the washi paper. I probably could have redrawn it and still had the same gap that I have on every other border, but then it would have been uneven with the other side of the page, like with the left page, and the white gap might have been visible from the cover page, and I don't know, it's fine, I guess, or something. I've also used the same font here that I used on the cover page, but just with the black micron instead of paint. Decorating this spread was still quite difficult, but definitely not as bad as trying to do the cover pages. After doing this and the cover spread, I was in a place where I had a better grasp on the theme in general and sort of how I wanted to execute it, which is honestly, that's pretty normal for me. Also, I don't know if you've noticed, if you've watched any of my videos before, but I've tried taking some phone footage for some different angles and adding that in. Let me know in the comments if you like it or if it's like a no from you. I've also added in some of my trademark washi colour dots, and because I've only used the navy paint that I mixed on the title of the cover page, to tie it all together, I've added it also to the tops of the calendar boxes where I'm painting the date numbers in gold paint. I'll also use it similarly throughout the theme so that it all goes together nicely. Something I like to do when planning a theme is to use two different fonts, especially if one of them is highly decorative. I think this balances out my spreads and looks better overall. I've used my letter stamps as my second font this time because they're easy and simple, and I think they look really nice. I went with the ink pad that I already have just to try and make it easier and faster, but real talk, the ink takes literally forever to dry and it drives me nuts. After this, I'm pretty sure I switched to a black brush pen, which does the same thing, but is actually faster. From the sleep tracker for the next few spreads, I've cut some Dutch doors, partly to use up some space and partly because making a little book inside my journal is just, I don't know, it's just so cute to me. Now we're on to decorating the sleep tracker and content planner pages, starting with the same gold borders that I'm using on every spread, or pages that I'm putting together to make them feel like spreads. I'm pretty sure I won't be doing any borders for my February setup because I was so sick of these by the time I was done with them. I've also done something different here. In my second half of 2024 journal, I started using a content planner, which I set up at the front of my journal. It worked pretty well for me actually, with a few little exceptions, like having to flip back to the front of my journal for it was annoying, especially when I was trying to plan what I needed to do like that week. So this time, rather than adding it to the start of my journal, I'm incorporating a content planner in each month. being able to see all the months at once was pretty useful actually when I was planning in my last journal. So to try and incorporate that within the new system that I'm doing, I'm using both the current month and the month to come when doing my setup. This way I can sort of see what needs doing now and what I need to prepare for in the coming month. We'll just have to wait and see how well this works for me, and I may need to make some more changes to it in the coming months, but I'm excited to try it out and see how it goes. I decided that painting the numbers didn't really look the best, so for some of the black painted box sections, I didn't paint with the gold paint and I went in with my favourite white gel pen instead. I'm not really sure that it's any better, to be honest, but yeah, I really need to get one of the same gel pens with a finer tip, I think, because this one, it's just too broad for some of the smaller things that I try and use it for, you know? When you're on the first page of the Dutch doors, and you can see this washy galaxy border from the very last page of the Dutch doors, what I've done is I've made sure to extend that washy border further along the bottom so that no matter where you are, whether it's in the middle of the Dutch doors, at the start, or at the end, it all looks natural, like it finishes in a natural stopping place rather than just awkwardly stopping in the middle or at the end of the right page. Back to the cover page now and adding in the finishing details that I talked about earlier on. I thought some constellations might look good, and I was talking about it with my bestie and they found me an image of some Zodiac constellations that fit the theme really well. So I went through and hand drew them in using the image as a reference, as well as adding in some more of the watercolour dots and stuff I used on the calendar. And finally, I can say that I was pretty happy with the cover page. It seemed to sort of tie all the elements together, so I did use the same dots and hand-drawn constellations on every page for this setup. The final touch for the cover page was to add some texture or, I don't know, something to the crescent moon, as well as to the one on the opposite side as well. It just felt a bit, I don't know, flat? So anyway, I went in with some light washes of the black and blue paint, going over it again with the white gold to give it a bit more dimension. The final result isn't great, but I think it did help with some of the sort of flat feeling. On to the next spread now, my mood and symptom and self-care trackers. More borders. I actually cut a bunch of the painting of these borders out from this section and some others as well, just because I didn't want it to be too boring. I separated my mood and symptom trackers this month as well. I used to do it that way, but to keep everything compact and tidy, I started combining them together. But since I am using a B5 journal, I figured I may as well make use of the extra space that I have. Yes, the part I hate the most. I wanted to line the boxes with like a bolder black line for my self-care trackers, and I thought it would just be the best idea to go ahead and paint them with my shaky hands, so obviously they look awful when I am done. I think had I not gone in to try and straighten the lines, they might have been okay, but I did, and now I have regrets about this entire page. I am actually low-key having trauma flashbacks to applying winged eyeliner. And now for the part that I hate second most. When I'm using the sleep, mood, and self-care trackers, you can see a big line of white space around the pages because the borders aren't going up to the edges of the washi paper, which was something that I had done on my calendar spread. Which is further evidence of my planning still not being good enough before I start putting pen to paper after the pencil. To try and sort of soften the white border, the white edge issue, I thought to myself, you could paint around the gold border on the January at a glance, and then when you're on other pages, You won't see a harsh line of white. It'll be all black. That's brilliant. Good job, you. You should definitely do that. And then I did it, and I hated it. It only kind of solves the whole white border issue from the other pages, but more importantly, when I'm on my Gen at a glance page, it looks so bad. Maybe I should have continued the black border over the whole spread, making all the edges black, but that brings its own challenges of not tying in with all the other pages. Like, at least just doing it on 3 sides makes it feel more like a choice, you know? But it also, maybe it looks unfinished. And painting the raw edges of pages can easily get onto the other side of the page too, even when you're being careful. And we have already learnt this episode that I am many things, but one of them is not being careful. So this is where we're at. I'd like to think I'll learn from these mistakes, but let's be honest, that's unlikely. We are now on to the final spread for this video, which is also a new one for me. I decided that since I've got so much room to play with, I'd try implementing a dashboard along with the regular small weeklies cover page that I usually do. I don't even know if I'm using the term dashboard correctly for this, but it's what I'm calling it, so just go with it. I've been changing up my weeklies a little bit recently by trying out having much smaller boxes for daily tasks, but having a section where I can check off the same sort of work tasks that I'm doing each day. So for example, if I'm editing a particular video, I can write that down and then I can check off like which days I complete that task on. Because I'm doing something different though, and taking up a bit of extra space in my weeklies, each weekly's setup, I thought it could be fun to try and do something new. Rather than having my med tracker on each weekly, having a med tracker that I can put at the start of my weeklies that will encompass my med tracker for the month, an overarching to-do list, and even some fun little things like I'm going to track the weather for each day. I might even at some point implement something different and fun along with the weather tracker. If you have any ideas, let me know in the comments below, but for example, I'm thinking of tracking the temperature for each day as well as like what the weather is like, whether it's overcast or raining or whatever, along with what the temperature forecast says for that day. To be totally honest with you, I'm not 100% happy with the layout of this dashboard, but in my defense, it is my first time trying something like this, and I've already started planning for February, and I am doing another dashboard, and I think I like the layout of that one a bit more. So I think it'll just be a matter of trial and error. But if you use a dashboard in your journal, I would love to know what you do and how you implement it. So make sure you comment down below and leave me some ideas of how I can do things and what I can incorporate on my next dashboard. As we're nearing the end of this video, I wanted to ask you to please consider subscribing if you haven't yet, and if you're enjoying my content. I have a new video monthly, and typically I turn my weeklies into shorts, so subscribing will notify you each time I upload. You could also follow me on Instagram if you wanted, where I post photos of each month setup that I do, as well as each weekly spread. I'll have my Instagram linked down below if you're interested. And now we are finally at the end, and we're going to flip through each spread to see how the whole theme came together. It was a bit of a mixed bag for me, honestly, but I do hope that you enjoyed watching the process. If you've made it to the end of this video, this already much longer than I wanted it to be video, sorry about that, leave me an emoji of your star sign in the comments to show that you made it all the way through. Thank you again so much for joining me to plan another theme. Genuinely, your time means so much to me, and I'm so grateful to have you here. I hope you're having a great January, wherever you may be, and hopefully I will see you again for my February plan with me.